happening? Welcome in. This is the Matt Bernier Show. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the preview edition, and we're looking at what I have sort of coined as Judgment Day here for these three-year-olds coming up on Saturday. You've got three giant Kentucky Derby prep races all across the country. One in New York, one in Kentucky, one in California. The winners and the runner-ups will guarantee their spots in the starting gate for the first Saturday in May. We'll go over all three of those races. If you're new to this program, thanks for stumbling upon this. This is the time of year a lot of new folks kind of get drawn in. If you are listening, however you're listening, thanks for doing so. Make sure you subscribe, you rate and review. You can find the podcast on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify, specifically for this preview edition, although the recap edition works very, very well. I would suggest watching this either on YouTube or video.drf.com, places where you can go and see as I go through. We're going to look at these races with Formulator, with some replays. This week's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to have to condense all of them because normally I go over one race, maybe two, but I like to do the deep dive. Well, with three of them and with relatively full fields with the exception of the race out in Southern California, it's difficult for me to do that just if I want to keep this thing to a relatively sort of dull roar as far as time is concerned. So I'm going to go through, rip through these races. We'll look at some replays. We'll take a look at some horses. I'll give you some ideas, some horses that I like, some horses that I'm against in here, and hopefully help you make your opinions going forward here on Saturday afternoon. Let's kick things off. We'll go east to west. Let's begin Ozone Park, New York with the Wood Memorial at Aqueduct. All right, we'll kick it off with the Wood Memorial. It's the 10th at Aqueduct on Saturday, a mile and an eighth. All of these races for the three-year-olds, a mile and an eighth on Saturday. That can really separate the men from the boys. What I'm going to do, I figured this is probably the easiest way to do it. I'm going to show you tape for the horses that I am most interested in, and then I will quickly gloss through sort of the other contenders that I'm a little less bullish on. We'll take these ones right in post order. The number one, Tax. Look, he's done really nothing wrong since being claimed by Danny Gargan. You see, he ran well in the Remsen at the end of last year with a 93. Comes back in the early February stage, gets the job done in the Withers by a head with a 96 buyer and a raw 117 time form rating. We're going to take a look at that stretch run right now. Keep an eye on these pink silks down here on the inside. He's going to ultimately scoot up the rail on the inside. Now, I think it's fair to question how good this horse in this field was at first blush because there was three of them across the wire, but all the figs came back fast, and it's difficult really to analyze things going forward. Now, coming out of this race, has it been flattered, the form? Not from the two horses that are here dueling with Tax, but I suppose those horses coming from a little bit farther back, they've come back and run respectably. Not great, but reasonably well. You've had horses like Sir Winston come back. You've had a horse like Admire come back. They haven't blown the doors off by any stretch. So I think you can safely question that number. Maybe it's not quite that high, but I do think he's a nice horse. I do think that there's some versatility here. Danny Gargan's done a good job with him. I picked him third in this spot. The win at Aqueduct shouldn't go overlooked, and the win at a mile and an eighth also shouldn't go overlooked. The two is Tacitus. He is the deserving morning line favorite. I think he should be the favorite when it's all said and done. I think he's the most likely winner of this race. 93 buyer in the Tampa Bay Derby, raw 118 time form U.S. rating. Now, the interesting thing is Timeform US had Tampa Bay Downs that day as speed friendly, so perhaps that worked against a horse like this coming from off of it, but at the same time they did have the early fractions in that race color-coded red. So to me it kind of negates. One outweighs the other. They just sort of, it's a wash. It doesn't really mean much to me anyway. I think it was a relatively even playing situation. The pedigree, long talked about. He's by Tapit. He's out of close hatches. He's bred to be a good horse. He's trained by Bill Mott. Jose has the mount. All things are positive here with this horse. Perhaps a little bit of a formulator fact that could throw you for a little loop here. Past 3 years, winner last out, second after the layoff in graded stakes races, 1 for 17, but 10 of them have hit the board with only a 22-cent ROI. Visually, I don't think it was spectacular. I thought he worked out a pretty good trip in the grand scheme. When you go through, if I could find the little cursor and get my water bottle out of the way, you're going to see him in these Juddmonte Silks, the number 10 horse. He's got the purple cap. He's splitting horses right now. The pace is fast. But again, it's a scenario where if you think he's running against the grain of the track, maybe it was a better effort than it looks at first blush. You see the trip worked out very well for him. He's able to come through on the inside, and he goes on and gets the job done professionally. He's going to see this horse, the number 6, drawn to his outside again in this spot and outshine Tacitus. Look, I thought he ran fine here. I don't think it was a brilliant effort, but I thought it was good. He galloped out well. I think he deserves to be the favorite in here. I do think he's the most likely winner. I just don't know that I'd want him at a short price. I picked him second. The 3 horse is the X factor in the race to me, and he's the one that I picked in this spot simply because, again, I don't really love anyone else. I respect Tacitus, but I don't think there were any slam dunks in here. Hoffa's Union was a horse that went out and debuted against Maiden Special Weight Company down at Laurel at the end of February, going out for Gary Capuano. He was 7-1 that day. He's at gelding, but he's bred to run all day. And he went out there and put on an absolute show for a first-time starter. This is not the kind of thing that you typically see. He's already on the lead. I understand the fractions are unspectacular, but he's going to blow the doors off this field and go off and win by more than 15 lengths with a 95 buyer and a raw 118 time form US rating. Now, you've got a number of things going against a horse like this. You're facing good horses for the first time here in this race on Saturday. You're going 1 mile and an eighth. And look, as much as I love that he debuted at 1 mile and a 16th and he finished full of vigor and it seemed like he was really just hitting his stride, you still do need to factor in that you're stretching out an extra 16th of a mile. You're shipping and racing at a different track for the first time. Now look, he had been at Keeneland for that most recent work apparently on March 30th. They're shipping him up there. So at least he's gotten a little bit of a feel for some of the different surroundings. But there are a number of things, and also from a running style standpoint, there's a real chance that he does not make the lead in here. And if that's the case, how's he going to react? I have no idea. You have no idea. I'm sure if you asked Mark Cassie, his new trainer, I'm sure they wouldn't know either. Perhaps you're hopeful that he's going to be able to rate and be professional and do what he needs to do. Or who knows? Maybe he is somehow going to go out there clear to the front and say, come and catch me. I just looked at this race and said, of all the alternatives, he's the one that's, to me, the most intriguing. We've seen time and time again, a jump up in class like this can be a little bit too much from time to time. But boy, what he did in that race, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I believe he's 6-1 on the morning line. I don't think I'd take much shorter than that. I'm going to go with Hoffa's Union in the Wood Memorial. Some of the other contenders that I'm going to be against in here. High Cal. I think he's a nice horse. Got the absolute dream setup in the Gotham. I believe he's a half to Takaful, who is a sprinter. I don't know how far this horse is going to want to go. I prefer him going shorter. Final Jeopardy, I loved his debut. Loved him in the Limehouse. Made him a best bet and out of the gate. Thought he should have run in the stakes race going longer later in the card. He was terrible in the Limehouse. Goes away for a couple months, comes back. I thought it was a good effort here when he broke through in the non-winners of one lifetime, or non-winners of one other than ranks. Drifted about when hit with the whip, so I didn't love that so much. Stretching out in distance, now taking on good horses. A lot of things. I don't know that I love this horse in this spot, but I do think there's talent here. Over deliver 1-2 in here for Pletcher. He's going to be speed. I haven't been blown away by anything that he's done. I thought he got a little bit choppy at the end of the Pasco. Win is a nice horse. We know that, but he was no match for him. Stretching out to 2 turns, I'm a little bit dubious, but again, Pletcher wins these kind of races. Not that Brady. I think he's more of a 1-turn type of horse. Grump's Little Tots. Look, I didn't think this was a terrible effort. I didn't think it was a great effort by any stretch when he broke his maiden by over 6 lengths. He's another one, though, stretching out in distance, facing winners for the first time. There's a lot of things going against him. Math Wizard, I think he's just up against it from a class standpoint. I like Saffie Joseph as a trainer. I think this horse is in too tough here. Outshine, I understand there can be some case to be made here for this horse, not just because of the connections, but he finished second in behind Tacitus. He was not embarrassed by him. It was his first time going 2 turns. You would think that he's going to continue to move forward and project for a new lifetime top here. You'll note that this little piece here in my trip notes for that run 2 starts back, Grinder finished well. I think he wants additional ground. But then we get to this race here. I thought at the top of the lane he was 2-5 to win. And somehow he doesn't get the job done. I expected a bigger finish. Perhaps we're going to get it on Saturday. Again, just from a numbers standpoint. And I would need to love him to really be picking him on top. I picked him underneath in 4th in here. And Jovea, look, nothing wrong with this horse. Humbled by Always Mining, who's an underrated 3-year-old right now, but I just think he's in too tough here. So, conclusion time for the Wood Memorial. I respect Tacitus. I respect the Pletcher horses. I just thought the most intriguing, fresh face in the new shooter in here was Hoffa's Union. I don't know what you're going to get for a price. I hope it's not anything less than 6. If it is, I won't touch him with a 10-foot pole. There are so many unknowns here. But I think that he is just sort of he's the X factor. If he runs back to that race from Laurel, he's got a giant chance. If he takes a step forward, I mean, he's probably one of the horses to beat, if not the outright horse to beat. But he does have enough things to prove that I wouldn't want anything too short. But he is the fresh face that I'm most intrigued with. For me, 3-2-1-10 in this year's Wood Memorial. Now let's go down to the Bluegrass. We'll go down to Keeneland for the Bluegrass. On to Keeneland, their 10th race, the Grade 2 Bluegrass, 1 mile and an eighth, main track. You know the drill here. We'll take them again. same deal. I'm going to kind of go over the top 3 horses that I like in here, any other contenders that maybe I'm a little bit against in here, only show you a couple pieces of tape. Down on the inside, the number 1, Some Like It Hot Brown. I understand the concern or the question that perhaps he is a synthetic horse and a turf horse, and the main track is not going to be to his liking. Who knows, but I'm not going to fault the connections for taking a chance in here. This horse has brought them to this opportunity. We're going to go back to the Jeff Ruby Stakes. You can see right now he's already on the lead. He's going to go on and do this very professionally. Again, keep in mind, Jeff Ruby Stakes is at 1 mile and 1/8. That's not going to be an issue for Some Like It Hot Brown. I have a feeling he's going to be a much better horse on the turf than he is on the main track. But again, what he's done thus far, to me, this is how you're supposed to go about this sort of thing with a horse like this with a 3-year-old this time of year. If you don't know what surface they are best on, I think they're doing it right with this horse. They're doing it right with, or they did it right with Another Twist of Fate. Go out there, strut your stuff on the surface that you know you're good at. Take your chance a little bit sooner than later. And then you know what? Even if it doesn't work, you have plenty of big opportunities and big spots that you can always fall back on. I keep going back to these kind of horses where if this doesn't work for him on Saturday, you have the American Turf for the 3-year-olds on grass on Derby weekend. There are still plenty of opportunities for this horse. I just think he's a quality horse top to bottom. I hope he runs well. I picked him underneath in this spot. The 2 is Vekoma. Vekoma goes out for George Weaver. He exits the Fountain of Youth. Another horse that exits the Fountain of Youth in this race is Signalman. Vekoma is 9-5. I believe he is the morning line favorite. Signalman is 5-1. You can see the figures. I mean, based on numbers, Vekoma checks out. I'm still very, very unsure how I feel about him going longer. I wonder if he's going to be better as a one-turn type. His return effort, though, I didn't think it was a bad effort whatsoever. Here we go. You're going to take a look at the Fountain of Youth. It hasn't come back spectacular. You see Hidden Scroll out there. Vekoma's in these pink silks, the number 5 on the outside here. He's going to roll up. And again, it's just not the best finish in the world. You see that paddle he's got flailing around out there. That's just... It is what it is. There's nothing you can do about that. But see how Lady Is the Change leads. I thought it was a fine effort considering he was coming off of a long layoff. And he can move forward. Certainly can. From a number standpoint, he is arguably the horse to beat in this race. But there's just that part of me that does wonder if when it's all said and done, he's going to be better going shorter, one turn, whether it's a one-turn mile or 7/8 of a mile. Basically, the races he ran as a 2-year-old. We'll find out. He deserves the opportunity to run in a race like this. And again, from a number standpoint, I'm not going to argue with anyone that says he is the horse to beat in here. You see those top 2 finishers, Code of Honor and Bourbon War, they came back and ran 3rd and 4th in last week's Florida Derby with buyers of 91 and 90. The 3 Signalman, he's another one. Came from the back. He had the pace to run at in the Fountain of Youth. Didn't love the finish there. He had every right to need a race. I still question overall how good he is. He would need a hot pace in order to help accentuate that late kick of his here on Saturday. The 4 Market King, going to be forwardly placed. Don't love his chances in here. We keep scrolling along if my computer would ever catch up with us. The number 5 is Chess Chief. Chess Chief's just the kind of horse that I look at and go, you're taking a shot. I don't begrudge anyone for taking a chance with a horse like this. I just think he's in too tough. The 6 is Dreammaker. I don't know what the hell happened in the Tampa Bay Derby, but I loved him in there. I thought this race at the fairgrounds right here on February the 9th was spectacular. He looked like $1 million. He looked like he was living up to potential. You see the 89 buyer, the raw 113 time form rating. The runner-up that day, who was 8.5 lengths behind him, he came back and graduated, or won next out, I should say, with an 87 buyer. The 4th place finisher, next out winner with an 81 buyer. And Dreammaker didn't pick up his feet in the Tampa Bay Derby. Usually I look at that, and sure, maybe he had a little bit of a hiccup at the beginning, but he was terrible. He never did any running. I'll normally look at that and say, you know what? I can't possibly back a horse like that. I liked him so much in that fairgrounds race that I was willing to take, well, I don't know, I actually went as far as that, but 7-2 in a race like the Tampa Bay Derby. If I'm going to get 3 or 4 times that in this spot, and I still think there's a chance that he can run, I owe it to myself to take one more chance. And look at this big bullet work down here from the gate back on March 30th. 4 furlongs and 46 flat from the gate. That's a giant drill. If he doesn't get it done here, I'm going to give him one more chance. I picked him on top in this race. If he can't get it done here or he doesn't run, then you know what? I don't know what to do with him at this point. But that run 2 back was still, it was good enough for me to think that there's something here. I'm going to give Dreammaker one more chance. The 7 horse in here is Admire. He's another one of these horses that, again, coming out of the Withers in the Tampa Bay Derby, the figures are there. I'm just still not entirely convinced that they are of this caliber. If you believe, you're still going to get another square price on him. Win is the other horse that we'll take a look at some tape with because we know what his deal is. He's a very talented horse, but you see I have it highlighted in blue. I hope that shows up well. Most recently in the Tampa Bay Derby, we're going to look at the start specifically. Bit slow. 2 starts back in the Pasco. Not a great. Broke inward. 3 starts back. Away slowly. We've got a trend going here now. And that's a problem, I think, in these races because you're going to end up being in a position like this where, keep an eye on this post position number 7. He's going to be in the Live Oak Silks. He's just going to be slow out of the gate. He's going to get pinched in between horses, and he's going to get shuffled back. And in races like this, I just don't know that that's going to work. I think you need to be a hell of a lot more alert coming out of the gate. And who knows, maybe that's something that you can fix. Maybe at this point, something that you can't because, again, we are trending the wrong direction as far as the gate break situation is concerned. I'm never going to have a lot of faith in a horse that doesn't like to break, especially at short prices. But from a talent standpoint, and strictly speaking a talent standpoint, I would argue he is probably the most talented horse in the race, more so than Vekoma, more so than Dreammaker, more so than any of these other runners. I still wonder if he's better going shorter, but he ran well enough here in the Tampa Bay Derby, and we'll fast forward it a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy with it if we can't show all of it, and there goes Tacitus on the gallop out. You can see him right here on the outside now, and he continues on, finishes willingly. Keep an eye on this horse here in the white cap also from the back. That's Sir Winston. He's running in this race too. We'll get to him in a moment, but win. The fact that he kept going on, I think there's some guts and some determination, but my goodness, we got to get that gate thing straightened out because you keep doing that, I just don't think you're going to have much chance. You look at some of these other runners, Sir Winston, he was the one that was in the white cap rolling from the back of the pack. He's one where I look at it and say, okay, Tampa that day, and I didn't mark it off for him, but might have been a little bit speed friendly. He was doing no running. He was going backwards, and he picked up 6 lengths over the final 1/8 of a mile. Combination of 2 things, I think. Him, for some reason, finally running on, and 2, everybody else was come to a crawl at the end of it. So a little bit of an optical illusion there, but he feels like that kind of horse that he might just be a long-winded type that will come along and pick up some pieces. I don't love him in this spot. I can understand folks that look at him and say, well, you know what, he's a fresh face. He's kind of a new shooter in here. You want to give him another opportunity to go right ahead. He and Admire still, to me, I don't know if I'm totally buying what they're selling. 10 horse Lucky Lee. This run 2 back was really nice. The run to Withers was a disaster, but he was bet that day. Needs to prove that he still belongs. So Alive. He's got a nice pedigree for Todd Pletcher in here. It's just a situation that I look at him and say, how do I take anybody at Sam F. Davis seriously? I can't help but think that there's reason for Pletcher running certain horses in certain races. I feel like he's got his sort of A string up at Aqueduct, and I could be entirely wrong. I could look stupid on Monday afternoon, but I feel like the A string is at Aqueduct, and So Alive is more of a B string type. I think he is a long-range sort of plotter, one-paced. I could see him, if he takes a step forward here, maybe being an interesting horse for a long-distance race, maybe like the Belmont Stakes. But boy, from a numbers standpoint, he just needs to improve by leaps and bounds. The 12 Parsimony, what else is there to say? He's still a maiden through 8 lifetime starts. I think he's in too tough here. Moonster. I like this horse sneaky, though, not on this surface. I thought this was sort of the wake-up moment for him in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. He finished very, very well. To me, get him onto turf, get him onto synthetic surfaces. But turf, obviously, because he isn't really, he's not like an Ontario bred or anything. You could run him at Woodbine, but I would be looking at grass races for him going forward. You take one more shot on the dirt. His dirt form, I don't see much here to get super excited about, but I did like the finish in this race most recently at Turfway. And then the 14-horse Aquadini. I actually liked this horse in the most recent run. I didn't think he was embarrassed that day. Courtyard, who finished well behind Dreammaker in his most recent run, or 2 starts back, I should say. He came back and ran down Aquadini. Aquadini, this outside post is no bargain. There's not a ton of speed in this race, so I think Corey Lanery can be a little bit aggressive, use him from the outside, try to establish some kind of early position. But then again, with the ground loss, facing better horses, additional distance, which shouldn't be an issue for him based on his pedigree, but you never know until they do it. I just think if he had drawn better, I'd be a little bit more intrigued. But the outside draw, I'm just going to side against him. So where did we go in conclusion here for the Bluegrass? I'm giving him one more chance. If the 6 Dreammaker drops another bomb in here, I don't know what you want to do with him. But the run 2 starts back was solid enough that it makes me think he can't run. I think there's ability here. I thought as a 2-year-old there was ability here. I'm going to give him another opportunity. I respect win. Got to figure the gate out, though. That bothers me. Vekoma's a very talented runner, and some like it Hot Brown. I've grown to like this horse. I think he's very likable. He's honest. He shows up. He runs his race. He may not be a main track horse, but I think he deserves an opportunity to find out and see if he can get into the gate. 6-8-1-2 for me in the Bluegrass down at Keeneland. Now let's go way out west. It's a short field, but it's a good field for the Santa Anita Derby. Third and final of the big three on Judgment Day, let's say, as far as the 3-year-olds are concerned. Santa Anita race number 8, the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby. Mile and an eighth on the main track. Again, this is obvious at this point. Just a quick thing before we go into this race. I'm not just saying this because I work in this business. But you as fans, you as handicappers, you as gamblers, we should all be fingers crossed, hoping that everything this weekend goes smooth out at Santa Anita. I haven't mentioned much about it because I'm not a reporter. I leave the reporting to the people that are reporters. And I think all the coverage all across the sort of industry has been pretty solid about it. I'm reporting on it. Now, some of the other things have not been great. But when push comes to shove, at the end of the day, we all need to be hoping for the best here this weekend because let's leave it at that. Things need to go well this weekend. As far as this race is concerned, it is not a big field, but there's quality in here. And I think you could be looking at some interesting runners going forward. We'll take them right in post position order. First thing I'll say, there are 2 horses in here, More Ice and Synthesis, that I think they're nice horses. I just think they're overmatched. I'm not going to waste too much time on them. If it's a short field, I think it's a great opportunity for the connections to take a chance, maybe get a piece of a big purse. From a win standpoint, I would be stunned if either of them figured. Let's start down on the inside with the number 1 Roadster. He and Nolo Contesto come out of a non-winners of one other than at Santa Anita on March the 1st. Roadster is in the red cap with the white body, rolling up now about 2-3 off the rail. You see the one horse in behind horses. That's Nolo Contesto. This was visually an awesome effort from Roadster, his first start since the Del Mar Futurity. Nolo Contesto, who actually went favored in this race, just kind of grinding along. Now, there were some things, though, when I look at this race, and I'm just analyzing this race as far as a prep or a move into the Santa Anita Derby. I loved everything I saw from Roadster. I thought he looked like $1 million out there. Never looked like a loser. Now, on the flip side, you see this gallop out here from Nolo Contesto. His maiden win, 2 starts back, came against Omaha Beach, who we will see in a replay momentarily. But Nolo Contesto was very wide that day, and he was in the clear, and he never really had to deal with any kind of serious kickback or anything like that. There is a part of me that wonders if that most recent run, which we just watched, is going to be more beneficial for Nolo Contesto than had he just gone out there and blitzed the field and won by 5. Because I think he learned something in there. He was in behind horses. He was taking dirt in the face. And sure, maybe the finish was not awesome, but I love the gallop out, and to me, he's the kind of horse that maybe Saturday's not the day, but if he gets enough points to get into the Kentucky Derby or any of those other big races going forward as a 3-year-old, I think he's going to be a serious racehorse. It's just a question now of, is he ready to take that big step here on Saturday? As for Roadster, it almost feels like when you saw a game winner win last year's Futurity down at Del Mar, and you heard how disappointed after the race Baffert was with the effort from Roadster. He said, yeah, game winner, nice effort, but boy, Roadster was terrible. And it was reminiscent of when Collected, who was owned by Speedway, who owns Roadster, when Collected won the Pacific Classic over Arrowgate. Sure, it was one of Baffert's horses that won, but he was just so disappointed because he had the bar that high for Arrowgate, and he was hoping that he was going to come back and get back to his best. Roadster, it felt like the air was just kind of let out of the balloon when he didn't win the Futurity. He comes back off of a long layoff and does that, and I think that this Sneaky has been the horse that they've been waiting to show up for quite some time. You see Smith has ridden him in all 3 starts. He stays here. He has some versatility. I just think Roadster's sitting on tilt. I think he's ready to go for this race. The number 5 is Instagrand. Now, I went on Twitter a few weeks back after the Gotham, and I said, why do people hate Instagrand so much? Brilliant 2-year-old. Won 2 races by a combined 20.5 lengths. But people were very, very sort of resentful to the connections, and I say connections to the ownership group, had nothing to do with Jerry Hollendorfer, for putting him away and sitting out all those other races because they just felt, or the ownership group felt it was best in the horse's interest to have him ready for these kind of races. Well, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't know. It's not my horse. I can't really make the call one way or the other. But I thought his run in the Gotham was pretty good. So when people just came back and they were like, knew he was no good, I don't think this was a bad effort at all. Here he is on the outside. He's being pushed along by Javier. And he never really looks like he's going to threaten. Let's be honest. You have much better out here. You've got some other really nice horses. It's just a scenario where you see Instagram is coming along. High Cal is going to ultimately run everyone over and get the job done. But I didn't think this was a terrible effort for Instagram, considering you hadn't seen him for almost 7 months. So take your personal feelings for what the ownership group did with the horse aside and just analyze this for what it is in a horse race. I say, I didn't think that was a bad effort. He came back. He already matched his career best as far as buyers are concerned in that effort. If he's ready to take a step forward, he's going to be a tough number to beat as far as figures are concerned. My bigger concern is the distance. I'm not sold that he's going to be a two-turn kind of horse. I think he's going to be a very, very nice one-turn horse. Flavien Prat takes them out for the first time. I think Instagram's a really talented runner. I don't love him in this spot, but to say that he's just a bum and he can't run, I mean, that to me is just dumb. Either that or you just got a major axe to grind. I don't love what the ownership group did with him either. But at the same time, I have enough of a nut in my head to recognize that, you know what, okay, fine. Don't hold that against the horse. The horse is a nice horse. He's good. He runs. I think he's going to be better going shorter. And then you get to the big boy on the outside, Game Winner. The 2-year-old champion. He returned, made his 3-year-old debut in the Rebel most recently down in Oaklawn. We're going to pick that up now. I brought up Omaha Beach when we discussed Nola Contesto, who Omaha Beach finished behind in their most recent runs prior to this, or 2 starts back, I guess, for Omaha Beach. And we're going to spin into the stretch. You see down on the inside, Omaha Beach is cruising. You're going to see Game Winner. I don't know that I can sit here and say that this was a terrible effort by any stretch. I mean, clearly those two put on a show. They end up drawing away from the rest of the field as the buffering continues on with this. Hopefully it'll kick up here in a moment. But in the meantime, it took him a long time really to kind of find his best stride. And I was a little bit disappointed in that. On the far turn, looked like he was just sort of moving evenly. And now it looks like he's got a big chance. He doesn't quite get there. I don't think this was a bad effort. I think it was a little bit disappointing that he didn't win, considering Baffert's horses are usually ready to go right out of the box. But at the same time, if you, again, just look at it, just bare bones, straightforward, he probably needed that race. He hadn't been seen since the Breeders' Cup at the beginning of November last year. Probably going to take a step forward here. Highest last out as far as raw time form ratings of 119. Highest last out buyer in the field with a 96. I think there's a lot of reasons to like Game Winner. I wanted to see him win that race. Now, maybe I'm not giving Omaha Beach enough credit. Then there's also this little formulator fact that do with it what you will. I know some people roll their eyes at the formulator facts and whatnot, but past 3 years, 3-year-old, second after the layoff in graded stakes races for Bob Baffert as a whole. 1 for 20. 11 in the money with only a 27-cent ROI. This horse is going to be odds on. Deservedly so for what he's done on the track. I just wonder if the other Baffert's the way that you want to go in this spot. So, tipping my hand, in conclusion for this year's Santa Anita Derby, short field, good field, I'm going with the other Baffert. I'm going to go with Roadster. I think Baffert all along has thought that this is arguably the best one that he's got. I'm going to go with Game Winner in second, and I'm going to use Nolo Contesto in third. I do like Instagrand. I think he's going to be shorter when it's all said and done. The horse that may want the most ground out of all of these is Nolo Contesto. He just needs to get some points here in this spot to get into the Derby, but when push comes to shove, it's Baffert's world in Southern California. I like Roadster in this year's Santa Anita Derby. There we go, the big 3 as far as the preps are concerned. After this weekend, there will only be one major Kentucky Derby prep left. I understand the Lexington will be run at Keeneland, but the Arkansas Derby next Saturday. After this weekend, we will have a much better idea who will be running the first Saturday in May, or at least who has the points to get into the starting gate at Churchill Downs beneath the Twin Spires for the Kentucky Derby. Thank you for those of you that have been listening or watching. However you take this thing in, please subscribe, rate, and review. You can find the podcast on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. You can also ask questions, leave comments, concerns, think I'm smart, think I'm an idiot, whatever it may be, beneath the video player on YouTube, or again over on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. I will be back at the beginning of next week recapping these 3 races, as well as, I mean, look, there's a million stakes races this weekend. So good luck this weekend. Best of luck however you play, whatever you play, wherever you play. I will be back with the recap edition at the beginning of next week. But until then, this has been the preview edition of the Matt Bernier Show.